Okay, I'm expecting a good chunk of you are going to have an externality question for a variety of reasons. It can cover a lot of material. There's potentially a lot of math involved, and in general, kids don't understand it real well because it comes towards the end of the semester. An AP wants, especially since micro's first semester, they want to see, do you remember the more complicated stuff? All right, so uh, we got the soda market. Soda creates obesity, diabetes, etc. Ruins your teeth. Tastes really good. Okay, and it's going to create negative externalities. The key terms here: we got marginal private cost. That's the regular supply curve. So that's the cost to the firms to make the product. Then there's the marginal social cost. Marginal social cost is marginal private cost plus the marginal external cost. So the external costs are the loss of health, the loss of longevity in life, healthcare costs that have to be given to people that have diabetes, um, you know, inefficiency at work because, you got a headache because you didn't have a Coke, okay? For those of us who used to be addicted to Coca-Cola, I overcame my addiction. Now I like LaCroix. Took me a while, but I was able to do it. All right, so marginal social cost is sometimes described as supply plus tax. Why do I have both of them there? AP may put either one of those terms there. And for the demand, it's marginal social benefit, which is equal to the marginal private benefit because there is no marginal external benefit, at least in this discussion. Okay. By the way, pour a little Coca-Cola over vanilla ice cream. So I make exceptions once in a while because it's not Coke anymore. It's ice cream and Coke, right? Chemistry. Okay, so I have my equilibrium price, right? $1 without government intervention. We have a quantity of 150, so that's our equilibrium quantity, the equilibrium price. The consumer spends $150, the producer receives $150. Everybody's happy except for people that don't maintain their health, and the government is getting no money. So this is not an allocatively efficient quantity, okay? So we impose the tax, which is equal to the marginal external cost. Well, to calculate this, we come to here where the marginal social cost curve intercepts the marginal social benefit curve. So that's going to be our quantity. And the price to the consumer is this $1.40. Okay. When we come down, and here is the price that the producer is going to receive, which is 80 cents, which tells us the tax here equals 60 cents per bottle of soda. Okay. All right. Very simple. The consumer pays 140, the producer receives 80 cents, the balance, that's 60 cents, is taken by the government. Okay, of course the quantity has been reduced to 100. This is the allocatively efficient quantity, where marginal social benefit equals marginal social cost is our allocatively efficient quantity. There is no dead weight loss at allocative efficiency. It's a trick question. Because it looks like there's dead weight loss here, because you got this big chief triangle here, but at allocative efficiency, there is no dead weight loss. There is dead weight loss here, and they may ask you, how much dead weight loss is there at equilibrium? Well, we can calculate using this triangle. I know in class we always have this triangle here, okay, as the dead weight loss, but we can use that here. So the dead weight loss would be the altitude, which is 50 here, times the base of 60 cents, times 1/2, so 50 times 60 cents is $30 times 1/2 is, we'd have $15 of deadweight loss. Okay, if we produced at 150. Okay, what happens to producer and consumer surplus? Well, producer and consumer surplus both decrease, right? Taxes are bad for everybody except for the government. So the producer surplus was this big chief triangle here, which 1/2 times 150 times 1 is 75. That's the consumer surplus. C.S. Lewis, P.S. I love you. The consumer surplus is 75. How much is consumer surplus after the tax? Well, I have this smaller triangle here, 60 cents times 100 times 1/2 would be $30. Okay. A question that they may ask, because they're going to want to use math on this, is what is the decrease in consumer surplus? So you got to calculate both, and that would be this region here. Well, we had $75 consumer surplus before, $30 consumer surplus after, so we have $45 of consumer surplus, a loss of consumer surplus of $45. Producer surplus would be this big chief triangle here, so 60 cents times 150 in your calculator, in your heart, is equal to 90 times 1/2 is 45. How much would be producer surplus after the tax? Well, it'd be 40 times 100, which is $40 times 1/2, which is 20. Okay, so I'm expecting that something like this could appear on the exam because there's a lot of potential math that could be involved. They may talk about an excise tax. Excise tax is a per unit tax. Okay, so this is sometimes called an excise tax. Don't be confused by that. Let's see, what else might they ask? I think we pretty much covered it. Who bears a greater burden of the tax? Well, the consumer, okay, was paying $1 before, and now they're paying $1.40. So this region here is the consumer tax. Okay, and the total consumer tax would be 40 cents times 100, which would be $40. The total producer tax would be this region here, because they were paying $1, now they're only receiving 80 cents. Sorry for the dry erase, but clearly the consumer tax is a bigger region. Okay, why? Because it's an inelastic demand. Okay, whoever has the elastic curve loses in the tax battle. So if it's an inelastic supply, then the producer pays more. If it's inelastic demand, which this is, which is what most taxed products are, then the consumer ends up paying a bigger burden of the tax. All right. What is the total producer tax paid? 20 cents times 100, which would be $20. What is the total tax revenue received by the government? Well, it'd be 60 cents times 100, or $60. Here's a question. Now, I'm throwing as many questions as I can out to you. They can only ask so many, but you don't know which ones they're going to ask. Be prepared for all of them, right? It's like when you scout another team and you see all their plays. If you know all their plays, you got a good chance to stop them. What is the revenue for the firm, or what is the revenue for producers before the tax? Well, it's $150. Okay. All right. What is the revenue after the tax? Well, it's 80 cents times 100. It's $80. There's a loss of $70 of revenue. Okay. What is the change in consumer spending, total consumer spending. Well, total consumer spending was $150. After the tax, it's $1.40 times 100, $140. Total consumer spending, $140. Total revenue for producers, $80. And then that leaves the total tax revenue as $60. So the $80 plus the $60 has to equal $140. Alrighty. Especially keep in mind, inelastic demand things tend to be taxed. I'm looking for this to be on several of your exams, just because there's so much that's possible here. I'm going to work on positive externalities next, because here's my theory. If I'm thinking they're going to put negative externalities on there, and I'm saying to myself they'd never put positive externalities on there, that means they're thinking we better put positive externalities to fool Mr. Gallo. Because they're not that I'm paranoid or anything, but they've got wires tapped into my house, and they listen to what I say, and then they do the opposite. So, I'm not paranoid or anything, it's just the truth. Okay.